This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Sorry for the delayed start today, dealing with a few things on the fly today. A very ill-timed power outage at one of our studios had me ripping across here to Reem, and we're good to go. We're good to go. We got a big show. We got lots to talk about after a really disappointing weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, no real way to sugarcoat that. A tough loss to Carolina on Friday night. Thanks again to everyone that came out with us for the WST night. And tons of people that had tickets just came and joined the group at intermissions, too. It was great to see everyone. A lot of fun. Really nice welcome back for Nikolai Ehlers. Unfortunately, Ehlers put the money on the board and probably had to pay it because the Carolina Hurricanes were able to get one past the Jets. Listen, I didn't think the Jets played terribly in that game, but again, you get away from your game at times against good teams, and it'll sink you. And tell me if this sounds familiar. A shorthanded goal that was the winner on Friday night, and it was a shorty last night or yesterday afternoon that was the backbreaker against the Minnesota Wild. There's a lot to dive into coming out of the Wild game in that. And you know, one thing I'll say is that, you know, this was a tough weekend. The Jets are going to need to figure it out. And I tweeted this out yesterday. I think some people took it the wrong way. Said, hey, listen, Connor Hellebuck's not back anytime soon to save the day. And people were like, hey, listen, you can't blame goaltending. I mean, I'm not blaming goaltending for the game. I mean, let me just see here. I'm pulling up a couple of the analytical models. I've run the numbers, and if you do not score any goals in a game, you will not win. And that's what happened yesterday. And it's concerning because it's the third time this season that the Winnipeg Jets have been shut out. They're not getting a lot of offense, period, right now. Obviously, Gabriel Velarde had a great game on Friday night with a couple goals. But much like I was dealing with the power outage earlier, the Jets dealt with that power outage yesterday afternoon. And while they had a really good start, and I think if that start results in a goal, maybe we're talking about a different story. But they didn't get it. Minnesota, I thought, played really well. And the Jets right now are trying to find themselves. And a team like Minnesota, you watched that game yesterday, they looked a lot like the Winnipeg Jets of last season. Really good defensive structure, not giving up a lot. And the Jets, for the most part, were fine. But again, you got to find a way to manufacture some offense, especially when you're missing your Vezina Trophy goaltender. Ken Wiebe's going to join us. We'll dive into all of this with Wiebe. We'll also have Matisz of The Score come up for some of the top stories in and around the National Hockey League. And then later on, if you missed it, at the end of the day, Friday, just towards the end of the program, we got the news that Valor FC is ceasing operations. And there was a lot of talk over the weekend. If you haven't seen it already, Rob Gale, a great friend of the program, the former coach of Valor FC, who's now in Portland with the Thorns, one of the top programs in the NWSL. He had it's something that you really do need to read. Just talking about where things went, the lack of support, and how he was very proud about a lot of the things that they did, but they didn't have the support from ownership, pointing the finger directly at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And at the end of the day, they didn't have the crowds. They were bleeding money. The CPL wasn't about to continue to float it up. And now we've lost our professional soccer team, which is a really sad day for the sporting community in Winnipeg, and certainly the sports landscape and the soccer community especially. And to have this happen just as we're about to host the World Cup, Really, really unfortunate. So, listen, this was, we'll get to that with Taylor Allen. He had a nice piece on it. And tomorrow, actually, on the program, we're going to be speaking with Desiree Scott and Diana Matheson, as they just finished up a very successful first season of the Northern Super League, the Canadian National Women's Soccer League. But we'll also get Des's perspective on the loss of valor, where pro soccer is right now, and hopefully some good things on the horizons after a really, really disappointing week. Listen, just before we get into it, we got to hear from Scott Arniel, get Remis in here. Do want to thank the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at CoolBet Canada. Poker tournament tomorrow night, 8 p.m. We'll have the details, but if you haven't been before, go over to CoolBet, click on poker. When you get into the poker software, click on tournaments. And there's a little magnifying glass. If you just put in WST, it'll come up. Registration is available right now. Myself, Remo, Hammer, the bounties will be in effect. And please, we need to end the Hamilton dynasty right now. Well, tomorrow night at 8. So join us for that. It should be a heck of a lot of fun. Also want to thank our friends at Princess Auto. Of course, Uptown Alley, the Winnipeg Jets, Rolly's Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center and Canadian Club, Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, fansfirst.ca, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports. And we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Still troubleshooting a few things over on this end. We should get Remo up right away, but I am interested. You know what? While we wait for Remo to get in here, let me hit you all up on for the why not question of the day. And of course, we do it for our friends at Not Autocorp. If you haven't got your winter tires on already, they can help you out with that. They've got a great winter tire program. But it's getting cold later on this week. You know the snow is coming at some point. So hit our pal Chris up over in the service department. They'll take care of that over at Not Autocorp. Where are you at right now? How concerned are you as to where the Winnipeg Jets are right now on the ice? 3-7 in their last 10. In the standings, on the wrong side of the playoff line. And oh, look what's coming up on Thursday, American Thanksgiving. We know the significance of that date, albeit maybe the trends have not quite been as reliable over the last few years. Interested to hear people for their thoughts on T. Will, very all caps, and I hear you. I mean, it's tough leaving the game yesterday where there wasn't a ton of pushback. The team got down and getting off their game. And listen, those two shorthanded goals. I mean, the fact that the first one on Friday night was a rebound, and then last night to have Brock Faber, a defenseman, beat forwards up and be in that position to score unaccompanied in the slot. I mean, that's not good enough. And I think everyone knew that Scott Arniel was probably feeling the same way when subsequent power play came out, and it wasn't the top unit starting for the Winnipeg Jets. It was the second unit. So depth scoring at the top line, team defense for 60 minutes, special teams. These are all things right now that are coming together at the worst possible time with Connor Hellebuck out. That being said, lots of hockey left to be played. We'll get going. Remis, are you able to jump in now? And
yeah, I can talk. There's no video right now. I don't know what's going on. Computers, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. What do you want me to say? Unplugging, replugging. No one cares, so we can move on. Well,
let's move on to your thoughts on where we sit right now after a pretty disappointing weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. And again, these aren't just losses. These are regulation losses, which are the ones that really kill you in the standings.
Yeah, very disappointing. And we were dealt a blow with the news on Friday as Connor Hellebuck's out 4 to 6 weeks. And I think it's going to be a pretty long 4 to 6 weeks, as we're still waiting for Connor Hellebuck to come back. But right now, Eric Comrie's a goal, and he's done a great job. But when you don't have that backbone behind you, when you make mistakes like on coverage, when you're on the power play, that stuff's going to bite you. And I thought Friday they played well enough to win. We're not able to, and it was the Seth Jarvis goal with the winner, I found myself looking around, see how many Hurricane jerseys there were there, wearing Jarvis 24 on the back. And, the game against Minnesota Wild on Sunday, you go down 1-0 and you have the shorthanded goal against. That's tough. You're down 2-0 and offense, they have to find a way if that top line's not going. And I thought Mark Scheifele found another level. He tried to win that game or tie that game by himself on Friday. But if they're not scoring, they need someone to step up, and they've been juggling lines in the middle, and they just haven't found a formula that works. So that's something they're going to have to figure out. So where are the goals coming from if you're not getting from the top line? So I do see the comments in the chat. I think, you can be concerned for the next 4 to 6 weeks, but hopefully they can tread water and stay on that playoff line. I know right now you look at the standings and, what are they, on the fringe here of the playoffs, but you hope when Hellebuyck comes back, they'll be still in position to strike into a playoff spot. But very disappointing weekend, not getting anything there.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, I'm just looking into it. I mean, we may as well get right into the therapy session here right now. Let it out, everybody, in the chat. We'll get to fan feedback for fansfirst.ca, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market, where what you see is what you pay, no added fees. The Jet Bomber, incredibly concerned. It's your boy Bruce, 4-6. That is true. 3-6, I guess, in the last 9. The 2-4 road trip, the 1-4 homestand. Reggie Dunlop, full nuke feeling. Sky is falling. Kevin Kowalik, Milic possibly starting versus Caps, Ovi on a heater. Jet's going to be on the right side of a random goalie performance for the ages. Book it. I'm not sure whether we're going to see him go that early, but I think for sure he goes in one of these next 3 games. I mean, if Convey plays well, maybe they have him go Friday afternoon in Carolina, and then Milic goes up against the Predators on the second end of the back-to-back. But, they might handle this differently. This isn't just the backup goalie getting that tough spot in the second end of back-to-backs. Hellebuck's out. Obviously, it didn't go great for Comrie, although I'm not hanging either of those losses on him. So maybe he does get in there a little bit later on. Derek Schmidt, the power outage isn't just at Huss's place. T-Will, putting on my helmet because the sky is literally falling. Waiters, I like this, Waiters. I needed this. I'm more concerned about dinner tonight. It's still November. Peyton Wilding, disappointed, frustrating, but it's mostly the same team like last year. Got to figure it out and got to work at it. Dallas Pauls, great to see you on Friday, Dallas. I was out there. Disappointing, frustrating, but it's mostly the same team like last year. Got to figure it out and got to work at it. And, listen, there is a lot of concern, and I totally get it. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of concerned as well. Key says the second slowest team in the NHL. Why would that be a recipe for success? The Jets are older and slower, and it shows. And listen, the speed of the Jets, which had been a real something that really helped them over the previous years, I think it's safe to say that, it's not maybe up to the level that many of the other teams in the National Hockey League are at right now. And, they have to find ways to create their offense, to create turnovers. And part of it is the defensive play. I mean, when the Jets were at their best, or when they are at their best, that smothering defensive style, the aggressive forecheck, turns into offense. When you get away from that, it doesn't seem like they've got a great starting point for the offense, Reem. And, it really isn't just one thing right now that is plaguing the Winnipeg Jets. It's a whole bunch of things coming together. And when you're playing good teams, like a really good team like Carolina, and let's give Minnesota credit. They've been one of the best teams in the league through the month of November, playing very well lately. If you can't raise your level of play, you're not going to end up on the right side of the scoreboard.
Yeah, 100%. And I thought that they played pretty well on Friday, came up just short. And this is, again, tough one on a Sunday afternoon, but they're going to have to find it. You hear a lot of the comments after the game. I think consistency been a problem, secondary scoring, as you mentioned, coverage, goals being allowed. So, yeah, it's not just one thing, but, I'm reading the chat. Look, there's a lot of games left. We're in game 20 of the season. I've seen stuff in the chat. Oh, this is a lost season. Start playing the kids. like, come on, guys. Hellebuyck's out 4 to 6 weeks. This team won the President's Trophy last year. Maybe some concerns about secondary scoring here, for sure, but I think they can figure this out here and try to tread water here until they get back the Vezina Trophy winner and the league MVP.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the whole thing. The timing of this Hellebuyck injury really stinks. Games like yesterday, at times. And listen, Eric Comrie is Eric Comrie. He's not Connor Hellebuyck. To expect the exact same results when you lose the 3-time Vezina Trophy winner and the guy who's the MVP. But this is the thing. Everyone else needs to step up a little bit more. And, as they say, we didn't have that enough over the course of the weekend. And they got their work cut out for them on this road trip coming up with 3 games in 4 days. You're going to see the Carolina Hurricanes again, a very, very good team. And obviously Washington is playing a pretty good brand of hockey as well. Nashville, not so much. But, again, 1 and 2s in 3-game segments is not going to cut it. So, got to make up for a lost opportunity at home, starting with this road trip on the weekend. Reem, do we have Arnie from the weekend?
It's in the list of clips are all numbered in the document there.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's.
They're from yesterday.
This is the reaction of Scott Arniel to yesterday's loss. Let's start it off with the shorties, which I know were a major cause of concern. Significant goals in both games. Here's Arnie on giving up shorties twice on the weekend.
Oh, it's a huge concern. Obviously, the other night it was a tie game and it was a game winner, and tonight we're down 1, and instead of staying in games, it's, we get beat up ice. 2 games in a row we got beat up ice, and some other things happened prior to that, whether it's a turnover or where it's a puck battle on the wall, but you can't get beat up the ice like we did 2 games in a row.
2.
All right, so there's Arnie, and listen, definitely disappointed on that. And there were a few guys that weren't looking too good, and as we mentioned, didn't get that first shot on the power play the next time they had an opportunity. Here's what Arnie had to say about the shots that they were able to generate yesterday.
Certainly in the first period, like their start. Second period, started to play a long game, tried to. Instead of breaking out as 5, we were stretching it out, trying to go long. We weren't getting pucks down below the hash marks like we did in the first period to get that zone time, the cycle time, sort of tale of 2 tapes there, and just the first period was textbook. Couldn't score, but at the same time, the second we just didn't do enough of the right things to get down low. And again, a coverage goal. The goal we gave up, the first one, we're in a 0-0 hockey game. That's a coverage goal. And to me, we lost battles on the wall, 2 battles on the walls, and then we leave the net front wide open. Same thing with that last goal that they got, coverage. And those are things for us that when we're on, we don't give those looks up. And, there's lots of stretches here recently where we've been really good in that area and not allowing those. I don't care who the goaltender is. You give up stuff dead in front of the net. It puts you behind the 8 ball. And I talked about when we're on, we allow stuff from the outside. We don't allow second chances. But tonight, those plays came right into the middle of the ice.
There's a frustrated Scott Arniel, and speaking about their defensive play, coverage in their own zone. You get off of it, and good teams like the Minnesota Wild, the way they're playing right now, will certainly make you pay. Here's Arnie on just the lack of consistency in his team right now.
Let's start with injuries. All right, let's start with injuries. Let's not sugarcoat it. Like everybody else, there's a lot of injuries happening. We've been getting hammered here, and got hammered again tonight. So we'll just, it's guys, you're getting opportunities to play more minutes or do more things and take advantage of it. Consistency, whether that's period to period, game to game, also has to be something that I would say in this first 21 has been lacking. And just us, making sure that, we always took a lot of pride in plus staying in and winning 1-goal games. Right now, that's not happening, and we got to look first at that. And the longer you can hang around in games, if it takes you, we think back, if it takes us 50 minutes to get ourselves a win, it may take us that or longer. So you can't give up goals like we have in the middle periods the last couple of games, and then now you got to chase the game. Now you got to get away from what you're really good at, and I liked it, like I mentioned, the first period is textbook. We just had to do that for 3 periods.
All right, there's the coach, and he did mention those second periods, which, were a topic on this program a little earlier on in the season. Certainly a topic today after, giving up multiple goals in both of the second periods in the games on the weekend. I mentioned injuries. Jets played pretty much the entire game with 5 defensemen. He was asked about the status of Neil Pionk after last night's game.
We'll go day to day right now. Just obviously got to get looked at a little bit more here, but just kind of wait and see how it is tomorrow.
And obviously with heading out onto the road, you'll have to make a decision whether you bring some insurance, I guess, along.
I'll wait and hear what he has to say tomorrow.
Now, Jets were off today, so no updates on that. We'll have that tomorrow, presumably a practice, and then up and away on the road to D.C. for the game on Wednesday night. John Matisz is going to join us. We got one more. And listen, the captain stepped up, tried to get his team going, dropped the gloves with Foligno on the Wild. And Scott Arniel was asked about Lowry fighting to try to spark the team yesterday and what happened after.
Exactly what it was. Exactly. We're down 1, and that first 12 minutes of that second period, we were doing things that we hadn't done in the first, and we were creating zone time in our end of the rink, and he just felt it was something that he needed to do, and that's stuff that Adam does. I really would like our response after that to be a lot better than what it was.
All right, there's Coach Scott Arniel. Ken's going to join us at the top of the hour for more on the Jets, the weekend wrap, and again, a look ahead to this road trip and what they need to do to get back into the win column. All right, just before we bring in John Matisz, big thanks to our friends at Uptown Alley. It is just, listen, the weekend was gorgeous. I don't blame you at all if you were spending a lot of time outside. It's getting colder. We know what's coming. And listen, Uptown Alley, one of the best spots all year long, but especially in the winter to get together, family, friends, for some good times at one of Winnipeg's, ultimate entertainment destinations. 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, laser tag, one of the best arcades in town, tons of games where you win tickets for cool prizes, and amazing food and beverage that will really blow you away. Perfect spot for birthday parties for kids, teens, or adults, and they've got amazing group packages where you pick your activities, pick what you're going to eat, and the event staff at Uptown takes care of it all. Go to uptownalley.ca for more information on maybe booking a holiday gathering or more, and don't forget, every day after 9 p.m., their bowl and play special, 90 minutes of bowling, $10 arcade card, $20.49 for 5-pin, $22.49 for 5-pin. Hey, our folks, our friends at Rolly's Transfer helping Manitobans move. They've been doing for over 60 years. Family owned and operated, and the most trusted name in the moving business. If you have a move coming up, head over to Rollies.com, click on Request an Estimate, and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and then lock it in with when and where you're planning on moving, what needs to go. Friendly staff at Rollies will hit you up with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they've been famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, make it Rollies Transfer, the most trusted name in the game. Find out more at Rollies.com. Great to see Dr. Terry from St. Vital Dental Center at the game on Friday night. Not as many smiles leaving the building, but if you do need a little work on your smile, head on down to St. Vital Dental Center. They've been serving generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans. Beautiful new spot now, 167 St. Anne's. State-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. Go to stvitaldental.ca for all of their services, from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. They can do it all for you for patients from 6 months to 99 plus. St. Vital Dental Center. Make an appointment today at stvitaldental.ca. And hey, big cheers to our friends at Canadian Club. Need to drink after these two games on the weekend, I'll tell you that. Of course, the holidays are here. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts for the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Still a few bottles of the limited edition Bomber label bottle. Might be a great Christmas gift, or certainly great for holiday festivities with Canada's original Canadian whiskey since 1858. But keep your eyes out both at liquor marts and at beer vendors for the limited edition Canadian Club Cranberry Ginger Ale, just in time for the holidays, pre-mixed in cans, 4-packs, 473 ml cans as well. An amazing option to get a little festive in and around the holidays with our friends at Canadian Club. All right, let's get back to the pucks and welcome in from The Score, our pal John Matisz. John, what's going on? How are you?
I'm well, Hustler. Thanks for having me on. And it sounds like a slower start to the day for you guys, a little chaotic. So maybe I'll bring some calm and tranquility or something. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You know what? It's kind of funny you say that because it has been very chaotic. A power outage this morning, putting some things together. Remo trying to jimmy up a double set studio here. So we're moving forward, but it is a little ironic that we're talking about a power outage and a team in the Winnipeg Jets having a bit of their own power outage, being shut out yesterday. The third time they've been shut out this year in 21 games, which is not what you sort of expect from the Winnipeg Jets. And I'm sure you're paying attention to this from out east. This is all happening at a time where they've got a deal for the first time ever with an extended period without their MVP, Connor Hellebuyck, in the net.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, too, when you figure, you throw that number out there, 3 shutouts this season. You've got Scheifele and Connor, 2 of the most prolific scorers in the league. How does that happen, right? But they can't carry the whole load. And honestly, I was looking at it today. I would be more concerned about what's been going on in front of Hellebuyck defensively. I mean, if you look at the Sport Logic numbers where they track slot shots and inner slot shots, it's like night and day compared to last year, where Winnipeg was, a top 5 team in both those categories in terms of limiting the slot shots, limiting the inner slot shots. Top 5 last year. Now they're like 22nd, 24th. They're at the bottom end of things. And I mean, is it as simple as, okay, Dylan Sandberg's been injured? Like, do we just, chalk it up as that? Or is there something else cooking in terms of the defensive bodies not really contributing? Is it a Luke Schenza, even older than before, that kind of situation? I don't know. But that, just sort of wrapping my head around the Jets beyond just the eye test earlier today, looking into the data a bit, that really jumped out in terms of a team that was not only the best team defensively as far as having the best goalie and MVP candidate last year, but also in front of them. They did a really good job. And it's like, this year, not so much. And then you've got the Hellebuyck injury.
Yeah, I mean, you look at those numbers that Remo has up on the screen. I mean, 29th in expected goals. And listen, the fact that they are 8th, I think, is a credit to Hellebuyck and, in particular Hellebuyck, because, I mean, the slot shots, 28th in the league, shots overall 20th, and expected goals 29th. Sooner or later, that's going to catch up with you, and it'll catch up with you in a hurry if you don't have a guy that has been the backbone of this team for a long time. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this quick road trip, I mean, with 3 games in 4 nights, I think they've also got Buffalo on the other end of that. But, John, as we know, you can't go 20 games in a National Hockey League season not putting up points and expect just to be where you were at the end. I mean, we're now coming off a very disappointing 10-game segment for Winnipeg. And, I think you can see the consternation in the chat right now amongst Jet fans. There's a lot that this team needs to improve on, and not a lot of time to get all that done.
Well, I don't know about you, Hustler, but I don't remember a season where the standings were so jumbled this deep into the season. Like, it's really strange, and it's more pronounced in the East. Like, the East is crazy. It's like the Leafs are in last, but they're only out of the playoffs by like 3 or 4 points. It doesn't really make sense. Doesn't compute, as they say. But the West is similar, and it's one of those things where it's like you can look at it 2 ways. You can go, okay, it's going to continue like this for the rest of the season, where every team is a bit of a roller coaster ride, except for, Carolina and Dallas and Colorado. Or you can look at it as, if you've already had your tough stretch and every team's going to have a tough stretch, then it's sort of, it's going to be, rainbows and butterflies and lollipops moving forward. So it's hard to say if Winnipeg continues to slide here, does it become the end of the world, or is it just a matter of this is the weirdest season in terms of the compressed schedule and the standings getting so bogged down because there aren't many teams that are actually actively trying to lose? You've got the Sharks and the Hawks as a perfect example of teams that not only are exceeding expectations, but aren't trying to lose anymore. They're not trying to get McKenna. Would they love to, if it's sort of an ethical tank, sure, but that's just not happening. So you throw more decent teams into the mix in the West and especially in the East, where it's even, like I said, more convoluted, and then you've just got a complete mess of a standing. So if you're that one team that's going on this, like you said, like last 10 games, not very pretty. If the next 5 games are equally ugly, next thing you know, you're like the Leafs and you're near the bottom of the standings, even though, it just takes a 5-game winning streak to get back into it. It's still, a mountain to climb, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, the Jets are right on that playoff line right now, and they do have games in hand against all the teams ahead of them. Jets are 3 games above 500 with 24 points. You got the Oilers and Sharks and Mammoth all with 25. The Mammoth get in on account of, I guess, having played one less game, but they're 3 above 500. The Sharks are 2. The Oilers are 1. I mean, you pop a couple wins in a row and, you're back on the right side of the line. But again, it is about getting that consistency. And we're going to dive into this with Ken a little bit more on what he's seeing and what he's not seen from the Winnipeg Jets as they head out onto the road. The standings is, a topic that we've been hitting for the last couple weeks. Just looking into the East, you just called it. The Leafs are last in the East. They're 1 game under 500, 9-10-3. And yet they're 4 points out of a wild card spot. Now, there's also 7 teams to catch, John.
Yes, that's the issue.
Everyone's playing. Half these games are going to overtime right now. It's the regulation losses that will kill you. That's what the Jets haven't done a good job, is getting to overtime at least. And I would imagine the same thing for Toronto. But you look at these teams at the bottom. Buffalo had a big weekend with a couple big wins, but they've struggled. They got back to 500. The Rangers and the Leafs, the only team under NHL 500. And of course, NHL 500 is not really something to strive for. That'll get you 82 points in the season, which usually means you'll miss the playoffs by about 15.
Yeah, 500 is not what it used to be. And I don't know about you, Hustler, but I feel like the Leafs are in real trouble here, where I could see the Rangers pulling out of this. I could see, the Sabres maybe going on a run. You've got the Panthers just in that same sort of mix at the bottom of the conference. But, this is crazy to say when I'm talking about the Sabres in the same sentence, but I think that the Leafs are worse off out of all those teams as far as what they've put on tape, their underlying numbers. I looked at it the other day, Tankathon does this good job of sort of doing a strength of schedule stat. They have the 3rd most difficult schedule moving forward in the entire league. So that's not good. Like you said, a lot of regulation losses. You want to get your games into overtime in this season. So you look at what the Leafs are going through right now. There's a huge identity crisis in terms of the team that's been put together by management being certainly not living up to potential in terms of what it could be. Okay, it could be this low event, gritty, playoff style team. We're not seeing that. And then you've got a coach who's trying to drill through to these guys how to play, effort level, just connective tissue, kind of basics, foundational stuff. That's not getting through to them. There's been injuries, goaltending, which they rely on too much compared to other teams in the league. And, in 2025, that's not the safest thing to do. Those guys are either injured or on leave of absences. It's really been a comedy of errors in Toronto. And you don't look at them and go, oh, they just need a couple more, breaks in terms of puck luck. Oh, they just need Matthews back and they'll be fine. It's no, they've got a couple of stars that are producing and then a bunch of guys. that a bunch of, kind of guys that are aimlessly going through the season, not contributing much, and their blue line can't move the puck. There's just layers upon layers in Toronto, whereas I see some glimmer of hope with the Rangers, with the Sabres, with the Panthers. Again, these sort of 4 teams at the bottom of the East that, hypothetically should be pretty good. So that's where my mind goes to, Hustler. I don't know about you, and obviously me being based around Toronto, my mind, naturally goes there.
Well,
but
it's
been ugly.
It's funny if you compare the Jets and the Leafs right now, who are both struggling, I think, by any measure. The thing that the Leafs have going for them is just how mid that entire conference is. I mean, you've got Detroit right now at first place. Tampa playing some pretty good hockey. They're both 5 games above 500, as are the Ottawa Senators. And then, I mean, who had the Bruins and the Flyers in wild card spots? And the key thing about Philly is Philly's only played 20 games. But again, it's just so jumbled. You win 5 of 6, and all of a sudden you're in a really good spot. The Jets' issues are compounded by the fact that they reside in the toughest neighborhood in the National Hockey League. Colorado's never going to lose again, it seems. They're 9-0-1 in their last 10. They have 1 regulation loss on the year. The Dallas Stars are playing some great hockey. They're now 13-5-4. And the Wild, who had that ugly start, have also showed how you can turn it around in a relatively short period of time. John, they're 8-1-1 right now, and they're actually turning some heads. So with those teams where they are, considering what just happened yesterday between the Jets and Minnesota, I would suggest that the urgency level is even higher in Winnipeg, even if they're in a somewhat better situation than a team like Toronto is. Not that it's not there for the Leafs.
Yeah, sure. No, that's fair. And you left out the Mammoth there, who I'm pretty high on in terms of, long term, but also they could make the playoffs. I think they're fully capable of that and have shown, at least for stretches, to be a team that's worthy of a playoff spot. So the Central's always been, not always, I should say, but in the last few years, been a division that has some real heavyweights. Obviously, Colorado and Dallas among them, and then Winnipeg with the President's Trophy winning season last year. Minnesota's always hanging around. It's a team that does not finish low in the standings, no matter what's going on in their universe. So this is not overly surprising, but at the same time, it does make things difficult when you look to the other division and you've got a team like Anaheim that's popped off and looks legitimate. Like, there's some teams who have a good 20 games and you go, nice story, but they're not ready yet. I'm not saying Anaheim's going to win the cup, but they are a playoff team. They're not losing their foothold here. Do they finish as a wild card team? Maybe, but that would just be because, the Vegases and the LAs and the Edmontons, the more mature teams that have really contended for a number of years, get their act together a little bit more than they have. So that's already, 4 Pacific teams that you're contending with. I think that at the very least, there's going to be 4 Pacific teams in the playoffs. So then you start thinking, okay, is Seattle for real? I think mostly not. But right now in the standings, they put a lot of points on the record on, and then you've got San Jose. So yeah, it's really interesting where you've got the Eastern Conference. You use the word mid. I think that there's 10 mid teams there probably in that conference, whereas I would put more heavyweights in the West and just give it a lot more weight, that conference, than the East in general in terms of the real true blue best teams in the league. And it obviously starts with Colorado, as you laid out.
Yeah. And one of the side notes or stories, I mean, certainly from us talking about, the Winnipeg Jets and, these other Canadian teams, is the rise of the Ducks, the Sharks, the Blackhawks. I mean, these teams have all been, top 5 picks for the last number of years. And now, with this young talent that they've acquired, Celebrini is brilliant. Bedard's having a massive season after a disappointing sophomore year. But, I look at 2 teams in particular that I think they're seeing not only their talent come to the forefront, but coaching having a huge part of it. And I'll put Q right at the top of that list with what he's done with the Anaheim Ducks, moving this forward maybe earlier as possible. And we can't forget about Todd McCullough in Detroit. Like, I'm not sure that Detroit has the horses to be with most of those top teams in the league. But we're now past a quarter of the season. They're holding down first place. They're winning a lot more than they're losing right now, John. And, once you get to this point in, American Thanksgiving, you sort of look at the body of work and you are what they are. And, both McClellan and Q, I think, making strong cases for Coach of the Year already. I think both of those guys have won it in the past, so not too worried about it. But their teams are announcing that, it's not next year time anymore for teams like the Wings and, as you mentioned, the Ducks, who are still holding up first place in the Pacific.
Yeah, if I had a vote right now for the Jack Adams, it would go to Quenneville, I think. And it's such a, part of it is like, comparing to your predecessor, right? Like, Greg Cronin was just not the guy for Anaheim in this period where they're trying to develop and maybe just ever to be an NHL full-time coach. Maybe he seems like more of an assistant guy or an AHL head coach guy. And Quenneville, there was some uncertainty there. He was out of the league for a number of years, had the league passed him by. It turns out it has not. He's really put the offensive engine into overdrive there in Anaheim with some of the systems and the tactics that he's installed. And, obviously walked into a fantastic situation, whether it's Cutter Gauthier or some of the defensemen that they have with Jackson Lacombe, et cetera. And just guys leveling up all at the same time, which, whether it's Beckett Seneca, Mason McTavish, they have just so many guys in their early 20s. And one thing I've noticed recently watching them is Pat Verbeek, and this is going to be no surprise to anyone that, has followed Pat Verbeek, but it dawned on me the other day how big this team is. All their skilled guys are pretty big. Their defense pretty big. There's been obviously an emphasis on that in drafting and development. So it's all kind of coming together for the Ducks. And will they finish top in the Pacific? Probably not. I'd bet that Vegas does, but they've given themselves such a head start here. And for the most part, what they've done looks real. And to compare that to Detroit, the one thing I noticed about Detroit in my viewings of them this year is that their A game, that's a playoff team. Their B game, or whatever you want to call it, when they don't have their A game, is a lottery team. I feel like the swings have been pretty dramatic. But to your point, Hustler, the coaching, those two guys, McLennan and Quenneville, longtime veteran coaches. It makes me think, okay, when's Pete DeBoer back in the league? Are there teams across the league going, coaching does matter? And Pete DeBoer has shown over however many stints, 6 or 7 stints in the league, that he can raise the floor of a team.
Well, and of course, John, this is sort of hot seat season. We're going to start hearing about coaches that need to get a few wins before they turn around. Hell, we're already hearing that in the Big Smoke about Craig Berube. With where the Leafs are so far this season. Hey, we're now getting to this American Thanksgiving point. We're basically at the quarter pole for just about every team in the league, if not past it. You've got an interesting piece up at thescore.com looking back at the offseason, and it's the best and worst off-season acquisitions now that we've seen 25% of the schedule. Where, we don't have to go through it all, but who was sort of at the top of the list on both sides for best and worst?
Yeah, for me, I love the Noah Dobson acquisition by the Habs and what he's turned into. And he obviously had a great weekend. He made me look smart by scoring a couple goals on Saturday night against the Leafs. But he just clicks that defense into place so marvelously. You've got Dobson, Hudson, Caden Gooley, and I'm drawing a blank on the fourth guy in their top 4, but it just sets them up so well. And he's only 25, for him to be, Mike Matheson's the other guy, his defense partner. It's a young top 4. It's a versatile top 4. It's a mobile top 4. You could see it on Saturday night, the night and day difference between the Leafs blue line, the Habs blue line, and such a big part of that is having Dobson, being sort of airlifted into that group. And they gave up a lot. I think the Islanders are probably pretty happy with the haul they got. 2 first-rounders and Emil Heineman, who's looked very good in a top 6 role for them. So it's sort of a win-win trade in that regard. But to get Dobson in that trade, to sort of pull the trigger on a big blockbuster and to have him signed up for 8 years at his age, I think was pretty smart business by Ken Hughes, the GM in Montreal. And speaking of not so smart business, this happened on July 1. Cody Ceci signs 4 years, $4.25 per season in LA. This is arguably the worst acquisition. And we all saw it coming. I mean, whether it was, the fact that, in a vacuum signing for Cody Ceci at that deal at his age, at how slow he is, at what we've seen him put on tape over the years, I don't think that was a good deal. But you also pair it with the fact that they already had Joel Edmondson. They just signed Brian Dumoulin the same day. It's like, what are we doing with this blue line in LA? This is disastrous. And we saw that from July 1st. And we're seeing it now play out before our eyes, where it's fine. Like, I'm fine with Cody Ceci being your sort of sixth defenseman, maybe your seventh guy at a league minimum, a sheltered minutes. It's not like he isn't an NHL defenseman, but to give him that term and that money and handcuff yourself to Cody Ceci after all the different stints he's had around the league that have really gone poorly, you start thinking to yourself, what is Ken Holland doing? Like, if he was their deadline acquisition to be their sixth or seventh defenseman, by all means, go nuts. But to marry yourself to a guy like him, I just thought in the moment wasn't smart. And then now that we've got, 2 months of hockey, looks even worse.
One of the trades that is really helping one team and blowing up on the other one, and I guess time will tell when you're talking about younger players, was that Montreal-St. Louis deal.
Yeah.
Logan Mailloux, who I think they thought would be a guy that would potentially be a top 4 player for them, is in the minors right now, and obviously Montreal pretty nice with what came the other way.
Yeah, Zach Bolduc. I'm really high on Zach Bolduc in general. Like, I think he's not like a super unique player in terms of there are guys like him across the league, but I feel like every forward group needs a Zach Bolduc, a Zach Benson, a Matthew Nyes, guys of this caliber who can play make, but they're also, bring that north-south style, some physicality, a good shot, like kind of these Swiss Army knife guys that trend a little more physical. And so Montreal needed that type of player for their lineup. St. Louis thought he's expendable. We got Jake Neighbors. We've got this other, winger. We have a ton of good wingers. They sort of thought about it as like if you have too much of one thing, you must trade it. And yeah, like you said, Hustler, like these are both 2 young players, both 22. I think Logan Mailloux will be an NHL player at some point. I think he will, be able to help the Blues. But I thought that it was sort of like a reach to go, let's go 1-for-1 for this, Bolduc and Mailloux, and everything will work out fine. I feel like it was a bit of a stretch by Doug Armstrong, the Blues GM, to look at it through that lens versus it's good to have a lot of good players, even if they all play the same position, and we'll ride it out and we'll find the fit for a defenseman down the line. But I feel like he really forced the action here.
All right. Hey, John, just before we go, looking at the standings right now, the Nashville Predators now in the bottom. We're going to be seeing them a little later on, but not too far ahead of them. The Vancouver Canucks, who got lit up on home ice by the Calgary Flames last night. They're now 3 games under 500. This has been a tough start to Adam Foote there, and you look at where things could go for Vancouver. There's been a lot of talk about Calgary being a team that's going to be selling. I really am interested to see what the future holds for the Canucks, considering their early season predicament.
Yeah, I mean, the dark cloud over them, right, is the Quinn Hughes question mark. And, if you keep putting this supporting cast around him, like a guy I had in that story of worst and best offseason acquisitions, a guy was Evander Kane for the Canucks. He's been given a ton of ice time, a great role, and has just not produced to his cap hit, to his role. And that's been tremendously disappointing. And you look at even another guy that's in that piece, on the best side, Arthur Seeloff, they gave him away to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and now they have Thatcher Demko and Kevin Lankinen, 2 really good goalies, but tied up to a bunch of money when they could have had a younger guy, a cheaper guy in Seeloff. So I don't know. The Canucks are one of those organizations that are kind of hard to read in terms of what are they going to do next. I know that they're not going to tank. That's something that the owner certainly doesn't want to do. And it sounds like Calgary shares that opinion in terms of the ownership and their mentality of what to do in a Canadian market. I don't quite understand it. I think Canadian markets would understand some sort of tanking period. But nevertheless, I digress. I think that, we could see Quinn Hughes leaving Vancouver at the end of his contract here if things don't turn around significantly over the next 6 months or so.
Many people say that that's going to happen anyways, and it's just a matter of how proactive they're going to be to make that all happen. John, great stuff as always. Looking forward to more of your work at thescore.com. Let's do this again soon, pal. Thanks for jumping on WST today.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Good Cheers. Stuff. There's John. We're going to get back to the Jets. Wiebe is locked and loaded. Just before we bring in Ken, huge thanks to our friends at Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk and everything that they do in Winnipeg, particularly in the sports community. Of course, Princess Auto is headquartered and founded right here in Winnipeg and now coast to coast, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you, 2 in the city, 1 in Brandon. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is waiting for you at Princess Auto. So get down in store today or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Very good week with Black Friday coming up to be getting to the website and seeing what our friends at Princess Auto have at the usual great deals that you remember. Hey, Thanksgiving down south, getting a little colder. You know what's coming around just on the other side of the next week or so? The snow. And our friends at Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba's ultimate power sports superstore up in Gimli, are ready for snowmobile season with great preseason deals right now on Polaris and Arctic Cat sleds. But there is so much more than just snowmobiles. You're getting ready for ice fishing season, they've got you covered there. And all sorts of ATVs and vehicles for trails that you can use 12 months a year. Best part about Chud's Power Sports is their tradition in the business. Over 80 years doing it up in Gimli with the most experienced staff around to help you get that right purchase or maybe parts that you need. Check out TrueNorthParts.com as well for the best in parts as well as great deals on blowout gear and accessories. Chud's Power Sports, corner of Highway 8 and 231 up in Gimli. Check them out today at chudspowersports.com. We'll have a Chud's Power Sports Power Poll coming up in the next couple days with the latest from around the NHL. Just before we bring in Ken, huge thanks to our friends at Manitoba Battery, your local leader for batteries of all makes, all models for literally everything, where when you go to Manitoba Battery, not only are you shopping local, but you're getting the best prices in town, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores. Best in customer service too. Free battery testing at either of their locations, Logan Avenue or Dover Court Drive. You'll be guaranteed the best prices in town with the best service. So drive by the big box stores and get ready for winter before winter gets you. Today at Manitoba Battery. Citywide delivery available as well. Check them out online at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's get Kenny in here. Our good friend from the Winnipeg Free Press, Ken Wiebe, joins us. And Ken, nowhere else really to go but a disappointing weekend for the Winnipeg Jets, compounded by the fact of the news on Friday that Connor Hellebuyck, their MVP, is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Talk us off the ledge.
Well, Andrew, we've been getting a lot of messages here, including one from Marshall Paterson. There's some people feel strongly about where the Jets stand. I'm here to remind folks that it's game 21. No team is cooked after 21 games. Now, the degree of difficulty certainly has gotten higher for the Winnipeg Jets. But again, I mean, this is not a sky is falling situation, though everyone can acknowledge there's tons of work to be done here, Huss. I mean, the Jets are not where they were a year ago. I just finished writing a analysis piece for the Free Press, kind of laying out some of the reasons for that. And yeah, I mean, I thought Dylan DeMello nailed it right on the head here. He channeled his inner Dennis Green here. I mean, right now the Jets are what their record says they are. That means they are a bubble team that is in the middle of a wild card battle with a bunch of different teams in the Western Conference. They've had some incredible individual seasons to date in the first quarter, but the collective is nowhere near a Stanley Cup contender, Huss. I mean, that's not to say they can't grow into one in the second, third, or fourth quarter of the season. based on some of those pieces that they have and the expected improvements in other areas. But right now, as currently constructed, the Jets are a bubble team. That there's no other argument to suggest otherwise. Now, in terms of the weekend news, Huss, I mean, I actually would counter that. I think the Jets played, two of their better hockey games during the past weekend here, in terms of what they allowed versus what they got. But at the same time, I also think that, the fancy stats are a little bit deceiving to a degree, in that I don't think the Jets generated as much quality against the Minnesota Wild as natural stat tricks suggested that they did, Huss. So, but I mean, for a team that had been getting heavily outshot and outchanced, I mean, the Jets actually held up pretty well in those categories in terms of high dangers allowed versus what they got against both Carolina, who is one of the fastest teams in the NHL, Huss, and plays fast. And I mean, I would argue they're the best team in the East, and they're one of the top 3 teams in the NHL right now. And the Jets didn't really look slow against them. I mean, parts of the second period, you could argue they did, but they didn't give up a lot of quality in those situations. Now, Minnesota Wild are red hot, Huss. I mean, night and day difference. 2 teams going at opposite trajectories. Last time we saw the Wild, I was in St. Paul. The Wild are 3-5-2. Now they've got points in 8 straight, and they're 9-1-1, and it looks like everything is cruising for them. At the time we saw them, and yes, they got the Jets to overtime, and probably you could argue they might have been the better team for a good chunk of it. But now the Jets seem to be reeling, even though analytically their second 10 games are quite a bit better than their first 10. So some of that has to do with quality of opponent. But yeah, I mean, I would just say this, Huss. I mean, a lot of the areas the Jets have strength in, but they're not getting enough secondary scoring. And the glaring mistakes they continue to make in their own zone have been incredibly costly. And now that also, I would extend that to the the power play, which has allowed 2 shorthanded goals where they were, in some ways a little bit reluctant. I'm not going to say lazy on the back check, but I am going to say reluctant in some regards. And I don't mean the primary back checker yesterday, Huss, because Cole Perfetti turned that 2-on-1 into a 2-on-2, but there was no one left to be found to pick up Brock Faber, who had about 5 seconds walking down Broadway in order to deliver a shot high, bar down special. So that's something that can't be happening. And we know Scott Arniel is sour about this too, because he did not send the first unit over the boards in a game where they needed a power play goal 16 seconds into the third period.
Yeah, Kenny, you mentioned that, and I know you and Sean were talking about that after the game last night. If you had any doubt of how Arniel felt about it, he told everybody loud and clear by throwing the second unit over the boards first up. And listen, I'm with you. I mean, I thought the team played quite well against Carolina, and that was a close game. But again, when you get off of it and allow a rebound goal shorthanded, I mean, you just can't do that to a team like the Carolina Hurricanes. And then, obviously, yesterday, there was probably more to be concerned about with the lack of offensive pop. But, I mean, to get an opportunity like that and then to end up with it in the back of your net in a game that you're already struggling to generate and score, it is really tough. And, I mean, listen, he said what he said afterwards. I imagine that there's a few special teams video sessions over the course of the next couple of days that aren't going to be particularly fun for the parties involved.
Certainly not comfortable, Huss, right? They say often the video doesn't lie. And that's one situation where, you hate to be on the receiving end of those, Huss, but I mean, that's how teams hold each other accountable. And that's how high-end players hold themselves accountable also, Huss. I mean, the effort wasn't good enough on that back check. And as you mentioned, I mean, it's a tough bounce on the Jarvis goal Friday night. And again, Josh Morrissey did his best to chase him down. Just where that rebound kicked out to, there should have been somebody in the vicinity of Seth Jarvis, right? So that's the bigger issue for me on that. So, you can't get beat up ice, right, Huss? I mean, when you are on the man with the man advantage, you shouldn't be getting beaten to that back post or to the high slot. So those are things that are easily correctable. But Huss, part of the problem here is that we've been discussing for a good chunk of the first quarter of the season that there are a lot of correctable mistakes. So when a lot of those mistakes continue to happen, that's when the coaching staff, has to sort of scratch its head a little bit, shake its head certainly, but also scratch its head kind of searching for answers. I mean, this is a team that hasn't forgotten how to defend us. I mean, even though there are different pieces of the puzzle and all of those things, I just think the commitment has not been there for a long enough period of time. And that's, and the other part too, the second periods, this is more than just a trend. This is a big issue for this team that they fall asleep in the second period.
Yeah, both games on the weekend. Yes.
Right. So that can't happen whether you're playing against a non-playoff team or against one of the best teams in the league. And as we sort of been talking about, the Jets' superpower last year is that they pounced on teams, but then they squeezed the life out of them. They pulled out the boa constrictor, and then they didn't give anything up, right? And they also combined that with the ability to overcome deficits, right, at various points. And yes, they threatened again for, part of the third, but it just was a little, too little too late in both of those games. And I get it. I mean, we're in the building, and I understand lots of folks are watching at home. And you can't help but notice that in a game that, where offense is required, there's Nikolai Ehlers making a perfect no-look cross-seam special for a one-timer by Andrei Svechnikov. So anyways, great job by the folks in the seats and the folks at True North for putting together the package to honor Nikolai Ehlers. Huss, you were there. I was there. That's as genuine a moment as we've seen in terms of players coming back, getting a video, and
I agree,
showing their warmth. I mean, Nikolai, I know Nikolai feels this way because he told me 2 weeks ago in Toronto that that's how he was going to feel. But to see, he was moved, right? There's no way around it. I mean, I don't know that he was for surely moved to tears, but he certainly was choked up by it, Huss. And this is a guy who wanted to show his appreciation. And we get it. It's awkward. Some people booed when he touched the puck. You get it. You understand. That's the whole, if you're not with us, you're against us kind of mantra. But I think the overriding feeling from the majority of folks that are, fans of the Jets were what we saw during the standing ovation portion, and then what we saw from Nikolai Ehlers in terms of showing his appreciation.
Yeah, you know what? Listen, just on the Ehlers bit, it was really nice. We kind of expected it to be one of the probably most special returns of a player. And he said all the right things. The funniest thing about it is I still have no idea, based on everything that he said, why he went to Carolina. Everything was great. Loved everything about it. Not here, but again, that's.
You said on July 1st, you need to, sort of get out of your comfort zone and, give it a shot somewhere else. That's what we know. He's not on the first line, and his ice time is actually
it's the exact same
right around.
It
might even actually be down.
Yeah,
his ice time might actually be down. And remember what I had mentioned too. For a guy who's been banged up a lot, and again, Carolina still has tougher travel than a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference. Going to the Eastern Conference when you're in your 30s is a smart move for someone whose body has, let him down at various points of his career.
These guys getting the hell beat out of them on these planes? What's the big deal about an extra hour on the plane?
Sleeping in your own bed a lot more nights in the East, us.
I hear you. Anyways, let's get back to the Jets as far as moving forward. Scott Arniel, and listen, we've been talking about this for the last little while.
Yeah.
They are nowhere near their standard in last year, because listen, this is a different team this year. We will obviously compare it to last season because of the success they had and how many of the same people are on it. There have been changes, but the one thing that has been constant is that they have not been close more often than not to that defensive structure that a lot of their offense feeds off of, Ken. And then you compound it with just in their own zone. Scott Arniel said where his level of frustration is they do a lot of things right and then just breakdowns in coverage. How many times did we talk about that last year? Almost never.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess my question to you is, and whether this is from the player's standpoint or the coaching, what has to happen to kind of eliminate some of those mistakes that are ending up in the back of the net and do it pretty damn quickly? Because as I mentioned, and this is not on Eric Comrie, they didn't score a goal yesterday. As I said, I ran the numbers. You don't win many games if you score 0 goals. But at the same point, they need to be doing things a lot better in their end. And I think the offense comes from that. And that's why it's sort of the catch-22 of what you saw last night after the first period.
For sure, Huss. Now, to me, this is twofold. The Jets don't have the puck enough, which means they're defending more than last year. So even though they were great at defending last year, they imposed their will on so many teams, in terms of A, pace, B, back pressure, C, hemming you in your own zone, right? So those are three things that are not happening nearly as often this year. They're not as tenacious on the forecheck. We know that they're not as fast. We know that. We've been talking about it ad nauseum. But the issue is playing fast, Huss. There's not as much back pressure happening. They're not creating turnovers in the neutral zone. They're not, getting odd man rushes off of that. And Huss, the crazy part is Carolina, who is almost always stingy, the Jets had a bunch of odd man rushes against them in that game. Now, Gabe Velarde buried his off the skate of Jalen Chatfield, but the Jets weren't as dangerous off the rush, even though they created opportunities off the rush. So to me, they're not spending enough time, A, in the offensive zone. B, their attention to detail in their own zone has not been at close to the gold standard. I mean, some teams may find it adequate, but to me, they're giving up too much. Too many high danger chances. Again, those numbers were down in the last two games at 5-on-5. Yes. But as a whole, in the first quarter, I don't think they're defending nearly as well. They're giving up too many glorious chances. And the other part of that is the 5-on-5 scoring. Jets were an absolute machine last year, right? They were, they were unreal. They were a wagon at 5-on-5. This year, 5-on-5 goals, I just ran the numbers, 40-39. In favor of the Jets. Last year, I think they were, anyways, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they were a lot better than +1 in that category. And that's something that has to change, right? So 17 of those goals were created by the top line. They haven't had enough secondary scoring, but they need to do a better job in that category because, Huss, we all thought there'd be some regression on the power play. It's only dropped from 1st to 6th. I think last time I checked. So
this team's under 500 if the power play hasn't been as good as it's been this year.
Or Hellebuck, right? So it's an interesting case study. And Huss, I left out. I didn't intentionally leave out the Hellebuck portion. I said this on our show. This is the biggest test the Jets have had. We've talked plenty about it's tough to be without Mark Scheifele, a number one center. When Kyle Connor got kneed by Ryan Strome, not having your number one sniper is a massive hole to try and fill. Not having one of your best defensive defenders in Dylan Samberg is a big blow because they don't have anyone else like him with that body type. Josh Morrissey did an exceptional job in the minutes he played and continues to do so, playing at a Norris level. But not having your number one goalie, no matter how good your backup is, Huss, and Eric Comrie's been a good backup, so is Laurent Brossoit. Not having a number one goalie is a big time issue for a lot of teams. And a lot of teams are fighting through it right now, including Vegas. We know what happened to Montreal. There's other teams around the league. Carolina was without Freddie Anderson for a good chunk of the year. And yes, Kochetkov is sort of pushing into a 1B situation, but it's a big test. And this is the biggest test they've faced on the injury front. I mean, closest thing is probably Buff, right? Back in the day, Huss. But they didn't play without Dustin Buffin very often. So not having your number one guy is a big test. I think Eric Comrie has been more than adequate in his 2 starts. He gave his team a chance to win. But the Jets, your margin for error is slim when you're playing your backup and have to play your backup for the majority of the next 20 games, even though I think they have reason to be confident in their backup in Eric Comrie.
Listen, I think that there is a level of confidence in Eric Comrie, but he's in all likelihood not going to be stealing any games like Hellebuck did before. He'll hopefully give you a chance to win with a professional outing each and every night when he's starting. I mean, you want to talk about a question mark. What happens when he falters? What happens when they go to Thomas Milic? I mean, thoughts on... do you know? I mean, are they looking to potentially add another goaltender right now? Or are they comfortable with this tandem for the next month? And when do we see Milic get in?
definitely the Jets are comfortable, at least initially, Huss. I mean, that doesn't mean you're not, putting your ear to the ground and keeping your options open here. Got a note yesterday about Chris Drieger leaving the KHL. I have followed up on that. I would say right now it doesn't sound like the Jets are in the Chris Drieger market in terms of netminding experience or having an experienced netminder come in. I think the Jets want to have a look at Thomas Milic. Huss. He's had an exceptional start to his AHL season. The numbers are extraordinary for a team that really struggled out of the gate, but has caught fire, as we've talked about, or as you've talked about, I know. Milic is, a guy that's won at every level. Now, he is, unproven at the NHL level. He's going to get a shot probably in each of the next 2 weekends. I would expect we'll see him against Nashville. Now, you could make the argument, and some people have, including Kelly Moore when I was on with him on the pregame show, Huss. He thought, well, maybe you want to have Comrie for the divisional game next weekend with the back-to-back. For me, I think we're going to see Milic against the Nashville Predators. Again, it's not certain, but that's where I expect to see him. And then the next week, then that's where it gets interesting, because you have the Jets facing a back-to-back scenario with the Buffalo Sabres Friday and then the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday. So I wouldn't be surprised if they flip-flopped Milic and Comrie for that part of the back-to-back scenario. But again, I don't have anything set in stone right now, and I think they're going to have to roll and see how things are rolling with both goaltenders over the course of the next week, whether that means Washington, Carolina, or Nashville, as we talked about here.
Yeah, and listen, while they're dealing with the goaltending issues, just as it seemed like the rest of the rank and file were healthy, Neil Pionk goes down yesterday. Do we know, is it day-to-day, or do we don't know exactly and there'll be an update? I mean, is there a wide range of possibilities on what this could be?
Well, day-to-day is what Scott O'Neill initially pegged it, but also he had to go for more testing today, and there was no practice or availability, so I don't expect to get an update until, the team practices tomorrow before they depart for Washington. So, and even then, I mean, we've heard there's been a variation when it comes to day-to-day, Huss. This is something that's super interesting. Pionk, incredibly high pain tolerance and threshold, no doubt. You even saw it yesterday. This happened on his first shift of the contest, Huss. He ended up playing 3 more. One of them was on the power play, and he had to chase down Joel Eriksson-Ek while from a chase position. So when he had trouble putting pressure on it, he still had to be able to exert himself to catch a player, which I can't imagine. Again, I'm not certain it was a groin injury, but there were certainly a lot of signs that it could have been a groin injury based on how he was hunched over on the bench, trying to loosen up, all of those things. So if it is a groin injury, Huss, here's the bad news for anyone who's had a groin injury. This isn't something that you wake up in the morning and feel great. Generally speaking, you need to rest and you need to stay off of it for a couple of days, couple of games. So that's why it kind of opens up the door for me. And we've talked about this before, during the Dylan Samberg injury. If Neil Pionk has to miss, 2 games maybe coming up here, or even 3. I mean, I think if you're the Jets, I mean, even if he misses 1, I think you have to consider calling up Elias Solomonson and giving him a test drive here, whether that's playing him on the 3rd pairing or playing him on the 2nd pairing with Dylan Samberg.
I think you're right, Ken. I mean, we've already seen, Miller come in for Schenn at times, and Schenn has had, some rough games so far, a couple better ones recently. We know Stanley's kind of been consistently playing above his head, on the 2nd pairing for most of the time with Dylan Samberg. I had a good chat with Nick Lyman after the show, and I know Nick's maybe not the president of the Pionk fan club, but there are levels to this blue line right now, and Neil Pionk, after Josh Morrissey, an incredibly important player that logs big minutes, does it in many different situations, and if he's lost, I'm with you. I mean, if there was ever a time to maybe give a player like Elias a look, if Pionk's lost for any extended period of time, I'm with you on that one. I think it probably would bode well to see what they have and see if he is ready, maybe for a little bit of prime time. It was wild watching the game yesterday. I mean, it seemed like every time a pairing was out, it was different. I mean, Morrissey played with just about everyone. We saw Dylan DeMello on with a lot of guys. Logan Stanley played a ton.
Colin Miller on the left side a few times.
For sure. I mean, it was all hands
trying
on
to get
deck.
some offensive situations. He was out there with Josh Morrissey over 21 minutes. Again, we've said this about Miller. He had not had a strong start to the year. I think he would be the first to admit it. Yesterday was one of his better showings. And, was that maybe due because he had more ice time? He looked like he got into more of a rhythm. So, again, the reason why I mentioned Solomonson is just because you want to get a test run at it, see what it looks like, right?
And you're missing a right shot defenseman that does a lot of the things that you hope that Elias will turn into at the NHL level.
For sure. And I understand, for folks who say he needs more time, and that's totally fine. I mean, I've spoken to a few people, that have watched him recently. It sounds like he's, back on track. I think maybe not that he had a bad start or anything, but he is locked in right now. He's not getting as much offensive opportunity because Cale Clegg and Ville Heinola are running the power play units. But I would be in favor of, running it out. I mean, the Jets obviously wanted to get a look at what the forwards looked like during these injury times in the early going. I think it would behoove them to do the same with Solomonson. Again, I'm not saying run him out there for 20 games, but even if it's in a small sample size situation here, they have the roster spot available. And I think it would be something to try out. Now, again, who knows what's going on with Hayden Fleury? I mean, he hasn't been skating. So if Fleury is close to returning, maybe, but he hasn't even been on the ice. So I can't imagine that he'd be an option for Wednesday in Washington.
Yeah.
So I think that they should give it a shot.
Well, I mean, listen, everyone.
And even if it's on the third pair, I mean, you could roll with Miller or Shen on the second pair, but try Solomonson.
Everyone is not ready until they are, or you need them. I mean, look at the goaltender. Like, you think anyone was saying, "Oh yeah, Thomas Milic is ready for NHL games this year"? Yeah. I didn't hear anyone say that.
That was not on the bingo card.
He's going to get a game later on this year. Yeah. So, at some point with this sort of adversity, it does give you opportunities maybe to see what happened. And I think this team could certainly use it. And it would be nice to see what Elias could do if he does get a call up sometime soon.
Especially because the edge he also plays with Huss, right? He brings you the mobility, the pass, the zone exit ability, but he also plays with a bit of an edge. And that's something that, again, we've been talking about this for years on the Jets back end. They'd like to add more stiffness on the back end. And I think that he can help provide some of that also.
While we talk about, the revolving door coming out of the defense side of the bench, over the course of the weekend, we saw significant line shakeups right now, swapping Lowry and Taves right now, and Taves is sort of in a bit of a funk. What did you think about where the lines finished up at yesterday? And is that something they get back to where they were in practice tomorrow and move forward? Or do you think that for the next little while, Perfetti's going to be skating with Adam Lowry? And will we see Taves with a group of, it was Gus Nyquist and Nino at the end. And obviously that meant Iafallo moving to Morgan Barron's wing.
Yeah, it's interesting, Huss. I mean, the search for the optimal permutations and combinations is certainly, spinning the blender or spinning the wheel of justice here, if you will. There's certainly a lot of options that are being test-driven. Right now, they haven't landed on anything that's really working. I mean, the Jets have too many guys that are in a bit of a funk offensively. So I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do in terms of that, but I do think that they're going to keep Perfetti with Lowry just for the time being. Because they need Perfetti to get going here. I mean, Lowry's found his game. Perfetti's got to get his offensive game going. Huss, I used this example yesterday on CJOB. Again, different injuries and everything else, different players, different levels of experience. But Matt Zuccarello has basically been a point-a-game player since he's been back, and Cole Perfetti has 3 points in 7 games. So, he knows he wants to get going offensively, and nobody puts more pressure on himself than Cole, which may be part of the issue. Cole's got to just relax and play his game is how I see it. He's getting looks. He needs to, maybe stop deferring to no matter what line he's playing on. He needs to take a shoot first mentality. But again, this is a guy I expect to get rolling offensively. We know that Jonathan Taves and Vlad Nemestikov both have gone through a bit of a dry spell here offensively as well. I think it's 1 goal in 8 games for Taves and no points in 9 for Nemestikov. So no matter who they're playing with, they're going to have to get going because as I talked about, even though Morgan Barron had the great start, he's cooled considerably. Yes, he missed time with injury as well, but I would be in favor of seeing Morgan Barron get a shot in that middle six. You could play Nemestikov as your fourth line center if that's, I think that's the next spin, next turn of the blender if it hits the industrial speeds here at any point during this road trip.
Well, we will see Wednesday night in DC, but the team will be on the ice tomorrow. So we'll look to have an update on Neil Pionk, maybe a bit of a plan for the goaltending, and we'll be seeing what changes have taken place to the clean lines when things get going tomorrow. Wiebe, great stuff. Thanks for doing this as always, pal.
My pleasure. Have a great week ahead here, Huss. Take care, my friend.
You got it. There's Ken Wiebe at Wiebe's World on X. And, of course, you can read all of his work in the pages of the Winnipeg Free Press. Speaking of the Free, big story on Friday was the ceasing of operations for Valor FC. We're going to talk about that with Taylor Allen from the Free Press in just a minute. But as I just mentioned, tomorrow will be an interesting practice for the Winnipeg Jets. And, of course, we'll be all over updates to the lines. Lines always brought to you on Winnipeg Sports Talk by our friends at Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years as in both residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical work. Much like Captain Adam Lowry, who has the back of the Winnipeg Jets, Clean Line has your back 24/7, 365 with emergency plumbing services. And, of course, Clean Line is an official sponsor of the Winnipeg Jets and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. Find out more information and contact them online at cleanline.ca. We got a big Monday nighter tonight. We'll hit the cool bet lines a little later on. Carolina at San Francisco. And then a busy week with the Jets in action on Wednesday. Little happy hour matinee, 4 p.m. start on Friday in Carolina. And then Saturday in Nashville. Boston Pizza Lounge is always your best spot to get together with the gang for Monday Night Football, NFL primetime games, and Winnipeg Jets hockey with your chance to win great prizes. And don't forget, get on the new Flight Club menu. Pizza flights, wing flights, bite flights, fry flights. And you'll be entered to win your chance at that big grand prize of a trip for two to see the Jets and Ducks in Anaheim in late February. Staying at home, order online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, Black Friday coming up. There'll be huge deals at Royal Sports. And listen, if you like to be efficient with your time, let me tell you that you can take care of a good portion of that Christmas list for all the sports fans in the family or your circle with one trip to Royal Sports. Anyone that's been there knows there's nobody that has stock and selection like Royal. And as you get into the holidays, all the Winnipeg Jet jerseys, tons of merch that you won't find anywhere else. The biggest section in town, National Hockey League, NFL, Blue Jays and Major League Baseball, NBA, international soccer, Team Canada gear. Of course, they'll be getting those Olympic jerseys coming up as well. Don't like the black one. I think the white one might look best under the tree this year. And, of course, the biggest and best hockey section in town with full equipment, goalie gear, best in sticks, right down to stick tape, and, of course, skate sharpening, along with a puck you need to play the game. It's all waiting you for Royal. Get on down there this week for Black Friday deals and take care of all that holiday shopping in one spot. All right, Taylor Allen's coming up. Just before we do that, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, let's welcome in Taylor Allen from the Winnipeg Free Press. Now, we are going to get to the big story around sports in the city this weekend, the closure of operations for Valor FC, but there is some Bomber news to get to as well, which we'll start it off with. Taylor, what's going on? How are you? Hold on a sec. I'm not hearing you, my friend. Is that on our end? We'll just get removed. Yeah, there we go. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Well, I mean, We're doing okay. It wasn't a great weekend for the local hockey side, and there's a lot of people freaking out in the chat, and I sort of get it. We woke up Friday morning to find out we were going to find out what life without Connor Hellebuck was like, and then 2 regulation losses, and now on the wrong side of the playoff line. A little bit of consternation. Of course, some really bad news for the soccer community right off the bat. But listen, just so we don't miss this out, some interesting news in Blue Bomberland. Dave Naylor reporting today, Taylor, that the Bombers have been granted permission to speak to Argos QB coach Mike Miller about their offensive coordinator position. Miller remains a candidate for the Argos head coaching position as well. A lot of intrigue as to, now that we know that the Mafia is back, Wade Miller wasn't going anywhere, Mike O'Shea and Kyle Walters, how exactly will this coaching staff look? And I can't say it's a surprise that we're hearing about potential options for the OC job, considering how things went with Hogan on the job last year.
I mean, obviously nothing is finalized. They're just requesting to talk to him. But I mean, if you're a Blue Bombers fan, though, this has to make your week, right? I mean, Jason Hogan, Mike O'Shea, he could be loyal to a fault. He loves, to hire within and, giving his own guys opportunities and whatnot. But it didn't work. When your own players are basically coming out in the media and being pretty vocal about how disappointed they are with how the offense is being run and how things they were doing in training camp didn't really make sense and whatever. I mean, to just keep things status quo heading into 2026 would be insane, honestly. So, but then again, it's Mike O'Shea, right? So no, it's funny that we even have had this conversation these past few weeks, whether or not they would move on from Jason Hogan, whether or not they would keep him or do what. I mean, any other football team, any other head coach, it'd be pretty obvious, the OC after a year like that, you tell him to pack up his stuff and hit the road. But yeah, I mean, this obviously is a pretty big sign that, Mike O'Shea is maybe as reluctant as he may be, but at least he's open to making a change. So this is big. And Mike Miller, the Argos Mike Miller, now if they do end up hiring him, that's gonna be fun having 2 Mike Millers.
We're gonna need some nicknames, staff. Like it firmly established right out of the gate. And maybe special teams Mike Miller was here first, so we'll have to get a new one for the new guy. Although, I mean, and I have a lot of time for an OC that just spent time working with Ryan Dinwiddie. We know about his offensive mind. But it will be interesting to see what happens in Toronto because, of course, they got to figure out their own head coach. And I guess if they do bring in a new guy, he might want his own guy. But some of the, if they do want to have some continuity, although it was a pretty tough season last year for the Argos, not on the back of their offense for the most part this year, injuries and much more. This will be something we'll be following over the course of the next couple of weeks, so we'll keep you posted on all the Bomber offseason news here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But Taylor, let's get to it. It was late Friday afternoon that we were just finishing up the show and got the release that Valor FC, after 7 seasons in the CPL, was ceasing operations. I admit, I felt a little guilty about this afterwards, just that I had no idea that this was even on the table. But, when you look in a little bit deeper, the club had been bleeding money. They never really seemed to have a champion in the community putting forth. And, then when we started seeing some of the feedback, in particular from former head coach Rob Gale, you realize that this had kind of been broken for a while, and unfortunately, looking back at it now, almost seemed inevitable.
Yeah, I think Winnipeg, honestly, is the best sports city in the country. So the fact that we had a professional soccer team, it didn't work, and we're losing it, it's heartbreaking, right? And no, Valor FC didn't have the biggest fan base out of all the pro teams in the city, obviously, but the people that did support Valor, they were diehards. They are a very passionate group of people. So yeah, so it is heartbreaking. But the writing sadly has kind of been on the wall for quite some time. To be a team that has 7 seasons and be a losing team in all 7 years, and honestly never even come close to being a contender. This team's been pretty rough. When I first started with the Free Press in 2019, I was on the Valor beat for 2 or 3 years, and it was dreadful sometimes, right? And then they let go of Rob Gale and they bring in Philip Dos Santos, and things didn't get any better under him as well. And so they're losing, and then on the business side of things, it's not any better on that front either. the last year that the Bombers, they were footing the bill for Valor, they lost over $1 million. And, I'm hearing that the league was losing even more than that these past 2 years when they were footing the bill for Valor. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. But I mean, I don't think anyone should really be surprised. I mean, you go to a Valor game and yeah, there's the one crazy cheering section, the trench, but at the end of the day, there was 30,000 empty seats. So playing at Princess Auto Stadium, that alone is just an awkward fit for this team as well. And then unfortunately, the Winnipeg Sea Bears, I think they really didn't do Valor any favors. When the Sea Bears came, they hit the ground running, easier venue for people to get to, similar price range as Valor as well. And I think just there's a bigger basketball market here too. So yeah, there just wasn't really much meat left on the bone for Valor. And yeah, Valor fans, they're up in arms saying, well, Wade Miller, he didn't run the team properly. The WFC, they should have done so much more with this club and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? Yeah, they do raise some points. But at the end of the day, though, I think unless this team started winning or whatever, like this is probably how it was going to turn out. So the best thing that would have happened is if there was a 5,000 seat stadium that they could have played at, but we don't have that. So sadly, I'm glad our city gave it a shot and whatever. But if this was such a great investment, someone else with deep pockets would have stepped up and said, okay, I'll take this over. I'll do a better job than Wade Miller. But hey, no one has. So yeah, unfortunately, we lost Valor.
It's an interesting comparison to the Sea Bears because, in this market, both soccer and basketball, two of the biggest international games around the world, are in a tier below football and hockey as far as established professional sports. Now, the Sea Bears rolled in, and again, shorter season, did some great thing. I mean, the biggest key for the Sea Bears was obviously the venue. I mean, to be playing at Canada Life Centre, what that allowed them to do promotionally as far as putting on the show, and the fact that, it wasn't the NBA. It felt like that for a lot of people, and they did a great job at connecting into the communities. And I'll give Jason Smith, the Asper Group, everyone that was involved in that, they did so much to get people to come and check it out, and they had a great start, and they ran from that. Soccer was almost the exact opposite. Now, in Rob Gale's post, and I really suggest people read that. It's readily available. He put it out on heartfelt, long post on what he felt had gone on. They started off with a few really good crowds. COVID obviously was devastating for a team like that had not really established themselves. But when I look back, the biggest difference with Valor FC to the other teams is they never really seemingly had a real champion in the community. I would say that Rob Gale was that at the beginning. Very popular guy, did everything he could to sort of bring attention to it. But really like to the MSA, Manitoba Soccer. I know they tried to get some of the groups, but it just seems that everyone was really detached from this team. And then you add to the fact that it was a second priority of the Winnipeg Football Club without a Wade Miller of soccer there. And I think when you look around, there's plenty of blame to go around. And as far as the venue goes, and we've said, could they do something to the Waverly Soccer Complex to make it in between a 4,000 to 10,000 seat facility? Well, it's great to talk about it now. No one's been talking about it for the last 7 years while the team's been playing at Princess Auto Stadium. And that makes for a very difficult equation to all make work. I really don't know who to sort of point the finger at other than I think there was a whole bunch of variables that unfortunately had the deck stacked against the CPL succeeding here, at least over the past few years post-pandemic.
And the thing is, too, though, that people I think are kind of forgetting with this league, it's not just Winnipeg. You think any of these teams in this league are rolling in the dough? They're not, right? So I'd be concerned about this league, never mind just Valor FC losing a team. But I think another point, too, is that the fact that Valor never really had that star player to really build around. They had Marco Bustos early on, right? Winnipegger, went on to be a MVP in the league, but sadly with Pacific FC, he ended up deciding to leave Valor that first year with Rob. I think they had 11 Winnipeggers. So that was great. Lots of, people, the locally people knew and stuff. And I think that drove in a lot of fans, but that team didn't win. That team was a mess. to be honest. So then Rob, he tried a different strategy. He brought in some guys who had some MLS backgrounds and whatnot. And again, same thing. That team was a mess too. Didn't come close to winning either. So Rob, built 2 or 3 different kind of teams. And at the end of the day, none of them made the playoffs. None of them were a contender. And I know it's easy for people now to, see his comments and say, wow, Rob Gale did such a great job with Valor and whatever. But like things were bad under Rob towards the end there. And I'm not saying it's all on him. I mean, I realize there's lots of things going against him in the club at the time as well. But yeah, I mean, and then they brought in Philip DeSantos, and he had 2 or 3 different teams that he kind of put together as well, and none of them could gain any momentum. So yeah, I kind of just wonder if there was a star player that would kind of hung around for a few years. I mean, Raph O'Keen, he's the guy who played for Valor since day one, and he's a Winnipeg guy and a great guy and stuff, but not a superstar though. So I wonder if that would have made any difference for them. But I don't know. I think you can't really point the finger at just one thing. I know Valor fans are pointing that finger, all their fingers at Wade Miller and the Winnipeg Football Club, but I just think there's so many factors. I think you can list probably a dozen reasons why this thing sadly didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, and I do feel gutted for all the fans in the trench, the Red River Rising supporters group. I mean, it wasn't massive, but the passion that they brought to the games was really what it is all about. And I mean, the thing that I think was the most unfortunate is that they weren't able to sort of grow year over year over year. If anything, sort of took a hit after a pretty nice start to it. And the end of the day, it's professional sports. And if the operation is just bleeding money, I mean, unless you have a champion that has deep pockets, that doesn't mind it, that is completely focused in on growing the game, it's tough to make it work. And, back to what Rob had said, they had some real challenges. He said that they were below the operations floor. I mean, essentially, they didn't have the money. They didn't have a bunch of things that some of the other teams. I'd love to know what the other operating budgets and how these other teams are making it work. Because here, the bottom line was there wasn't enough asses in seats to come close to paying the bills. And if that is not the case for a long time, you're probably seeing something like this happen. What is doubly disappointing from a local level, I'm sure from a league level, and certainly from a Canada soccer level, is that this is happening months before we are hosting the World Cup for the first time. Our men's national team has never been in a better spot than they are right now under Jesse Marsh. We are creating and building talented young players representing us on the world stage, but a big part of that was always having a healthy domestic league. And you really hope, just from a soccer standpoint, if you're a fan of the national team, even if you weren't someone that went out to Valor, you hope that this league finds a way to stay alive and continue to grow despite the failure here in Winnipeg, because it is truly part of a grander plan to have Canada being a contender on a world stage as our men's national team has continued to grow.
Yeah, and I definitely worry on the impact that it's going to have on the grassroots here of soccer in Manitoba. I mean, Marco Bustos, he had an Instagram post the other day just saying how, growing up when he was a kid, the dream of playing pro soccer for in your home city, that wasn't a thing. And when Valor did become a thing for people like him and Dylan Carrero and Dylan Sacramento, so many other guys, it was like, okay, like now we can help inspire the next generation of young Winnipeg soccer players and say like, hey, like you can play pro soccer. There is a path to do that and you can do it in your home city. And now, it's extremely sad that that's not a thing anymore. So yeah, it's, again, even though the writing has been on the wall for a long time, like it's still a heartbreaking thing. And you're right, the timing of the World Cup and stuff is just not ideal whatsoever. And yeah, again, I understand Valor fans are frustrated. They need someone to blame and whatever. And again, like I said, I understand that Wade Miller and the Winnipeg Football Club probably could have done some things better as well. But I mean, and then the Bombers, yeah, they are generating millions of dollars of revenue right now for the Winnipeg Football Club. But I mean, Wade Miller, he's been around for a long time. He knows things aren't always that rosy with the CFL. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when the Bombers were, losing money as well. So,
well, and he's not a soccer guy. I mean, that is what I keep coming back to. I mean, they just did not have, whether it was in that organization, a face of the organization outside of Rob Gale. But again, he was coaching the team, building the team. You also need someone in the community that is out there building sponsorships, building relationships. And you mentioned the grassroots. I don't think this changes anything at the grassroots because, to be honest, I think there was a massive disconnect from grassroots in the MSA to this team almost from inception. I spent the weekend texting a number of people that, I knew were pretty involved in the soccer community. And, I'll paraphrase this, but, one person that I trust quite a bit said the Manitoba Soccer Association, who could have gotten behind this in a much better way than they did, have always had sort of a low standard of leadership from pro to grassroots at so many levels. And listen, that is a big, big part of this. And there had to be someone that has not only the connections, the juice, if you will, in the community, but also the passion for the product that was never there. And to be honest with you, people can point their fingers at Wade Miller all along. They were the steward that said, okay, you can play there, but this really wasn't their baby at all. And if anything, as the losses kept mounting, it became more of a problem for the Winnipeg Football Club than it was an asset. That being said, we almost, I shouldn't say never, but there was very limited cross-promotion from the Bombers to Valor FC. The Bombers have done a great job focusing on their business. They are the pride of the Canadian Football League, the most, the most successful franchise right now on the field and in the stands. Obviously, they didn't win the Grey Cup, but you know what I'm saying. And it was just night and day with this, with the soccer venture. And, unfortunately, especially once it got to a point where the league was taking over and handling the losses, Taylor, at that point, from a league standpoint, they should have known that this was going to happen and it was going to go one way or the other. They never got that community champion to go in and really take this team and move it forward. I'm not sure that would have worked, but it's like they didn't even get to the point of really giving their best shot.
Yeah, and I get that argument, but at the end of the day, though, again, 7 seasons, 7 losing seasons, and it's not like they were even close, right? This was a terrible on-field product, right? So you talk about the business side, the promotion side, the marketing side, all that stuff, but at the end of the day, who wants to drive across the city to see a losing team? It's not and they're this year, for example, I even just focus on this year. They lost to Forge 5, and that's the best team in CPL history since day one, really. They lost to Forge 5-0, or 5-0, I should say, twice this year, right? That's how far off they were from being a true contender. And the Canadian Championship, that's a tournament every year that features the MLS Canadian teams, the CPL teams, and some semi-pro teams across Canada as well. There was a year where Valor lost to one of the semi-pro teams, and they never even came close to going on a run in the Canadian Championship. This year was kind of cool. They got to host the Whitecaps in that Canadian Championship in the quarterfinal, and actually forced the 2-2 draw, at home. So that's probably the coolest moment in Valor FC history. But yeah, even a game like that with the Whitecaps, the first time ever that an MLS team has played in Winnipeg, they still only had 3,000 or 4,000 people in the stands for that. And I know Valor fans are saying, well, they should have promoted them more. They should have promoted them more. At the end of the day, though, we're a big, small city. Word gets around if something's cool and if it's super fun and whatever. And social media is a thing. Valor's always active on social media and stuff. I don't think more newspaper ads, maybe I shouldn't say that as a Free Press guy, but I don't think more newspaper ads and more billboards, whatever, would have ultimately made that massive of a difference. At the end of the day, this team stunk and people want to see a winning product. And even look at the Sea Bears, right? This year, that they kind of, even last year, the drop off in their on-court play has been obvious. And even their tickets haven't been quite as rapid
the novelty
as maybe they
of
were
something
in
new does
one.
sort of wear off at some point, and there is an
element
of expectations that you'll be competitive and do all those things. I just can't help but think, and you mentioned that game again with the Whitecaps, who, by the way, an incredible win on the weekend. Thomas Muller's there right now. It is a great story of success for Canadian soccer at an even higher level, obviously in a community that has a rich and storied soccer history. But that was embarrassing, with the game here. And listen, I realize that the way the championship works, these games, or you win a game and then all of a sudden you are playing. But it was No one expected it to happen, so there were no plans for anything. And like, I can tell you, someone like us doing this every single day, like it wasn't like we got even a text or an email. Hey, do you guys want to do something else? This is the biggest game ever at Valor FC. It just sort of came and gone. And it was unfortunately another, I think, example of really missed opportunities for a sport that, is participated on at such a high level. There's so many people connected to it. You see the way the Canadian national team has been growing in popularity and in profile. And unfortunately, that word disconnect, I think, just comes back in so many different ways to Valor. Just before we go, Taylor, when you had the piece, and folks can read it on the weekend in the Winnipeg Free Press, what's the inbox been like after that? And what's sort of been the consensus of feedback to the announcement?
Well, here's the thing with Valor. I mean, I've covered them quite a bit over the years, and those stories never did well, right? I could write a great feature story on a player, great game story, whatever, and there just wasn't an interest in Valor coverage. And yet that never stopped us at the Winnipeg Free Press from still covering them. But I mean, Valor fans are, they always say, well, why don't they get more coverage? Why don't they get more coverage? It's like, well, because there just wasn't an appetite for it. But I digress. So yeah, well, for my story on Valor, I reached out to Philip Dos Santos, and he said, you know what, it's out of my control now. It's really disappointing, but I'd rather not comment on it. Okay, fair enough. Reached out to Raph O'Heen, again, the Winnipegger, who's been on with the team since year one. He was very emotional. Obviously, he spent 7 years with this team, hometown guy, and so he wasn't ready to talk about it. And fair enough. I reached out to the league. They didn't want to talk about it either. So I spoke to Wade Miller. He was open and said whatever. And I spoke to a passionate fan as well, a season ticket holder since day one. And I think Wade Miller, that was one of the only interviews that Wade Miller did that day on Valor. So I've had a lot of fans on the Valor Facebook group or whatever, coming after me and saying it was a crap article and whatever. But it's like, hey, I interviewed Wade Miller. I just shared what he said, right? I'm not saying I agree with everything that he said. I'm just saying this is what Wade Miller said.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Literally. Yeah, literally. So I've had a few people kind of, write some nasty things to me, but whatever. It is what it is.
Only
And
as
I get
much
it.
of that
They're mad,
passion.
they're disappointed. So.
And listen, I'm not blaming. Please don't take this as blaming the fans at all. But if only some of that passion could have translated into more of a move to get more people into the team, following the team, maybe it would have a different end. We're going to be talking to Des Scott and Christina Litz tomorrow. Just sort of, combination, their first year with the Women's Pro League, and Desiree, who I think has more respect as, Winnipeg athletic legend, but also the face of soccer in Winnipeg and Manitoba, literally for the last 15, 20 years. Interested to get some feedback from them on this story. So we'll have that tomorrow for you here on Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. Taylor, always great to catch up. Beautiful Coolbet lid, by the way. Looking good, my friend. We're going to get to the Coolbet lines coming up in just a couple minutes. Yeah, great to see you last week at our little to-do. That was a very good time. Appreciate your time as always, pal.
Yeah, you bet. And on Wednesday, I'm off to Halifax for the Canadian Olympic curling trial. So next week, let's talk some curling.
Okay, listen, this is great. I'm all over this right now. Carrie Anderson, just while you're talking about her, I'm sure you're on there. I was not aware that you're doing this. This is perfect. How about that? 3-0 start for Carrie. I think they're on the ice right now. We'll get a little bit of an update from what's happening this afternoon. And a shocking loss by Homan last night.
She's human. She's human after all.
Apparently. And, we were speaking of cool bet lines. I was looking at the betting lines for this. And, in curling, you just don't have favorites as massive as Rachel Homan was in a field like this. But, maybe there is a chink in the armor, if you will. And I'll tell you what, if Carrie can maintain this level of play, again, it's just one loss for Homan. But, really, I think when you look at this field, Carrie, maybe Caitlin Law's the best teams to maybe have a chance of knocking Homan off. But, it's basically Homan in the field, but it hasn't been the same steamroller, at least in the first week last night with the loss, than we've seen so far. And obviously, Maddie Dunstone with a nice start and a very good chance to maybe be that team. I have a feeling as this week grows into the weekend, there's going to be a ton of people in and around our area, being the most successful curling province just by the amount of teams in it. And this is the big one. I mean, every 4 years, this event happens. These teams play for 4 years to try to represent Canada at the Olympic Games, and there's a lot on the line for these Manitoba rinks right now and throughout the weekend. So very much looking forward to you being out there. And yeah, we'll have to get you on from Hallie at some time that works for you.
Right on. Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate it, Taylor. All the best.
You bet. Take care, guys.
There's the commish, Taylor Allen, the commish of our Media Fantasy Football League. But I'll be heading out to Halifax for the curling Olympic trials. I guess 4 years ago, I actually, speaking of Cool Bet, went out with Chris Abbott at the time. They were sponsoring Homan's Rink, and we got a chance to, kind of take it all in. And man, the stakes in that event are so high. The amount of work that all these teams have played gone in. So, while I'm here, let me just pull up my favorite curling website, Curling Zone. Carrie is still 3-0. Rachel is now 3-1. Looking at the it's Laws and Einarson right now. Carrie up on Caitlin, 6-4, playing in the 10th. Homan's just won. Skrillex just handed Manitoba's Kate Cameron her 4th loss. Tough start. And the black rink started. And then, of course, we've got the men's side. This morning's draw, Gushu beat Epping. Maddie Dunstone beat the Kleider rink 7-3. Cooey met the Young Guns, the McDonald rink, who were the last qualifiers, also from Manitoba. And then Brad Jacobs beat, he really is Winnipeg's Mike McEwen. He is playing out of Saskatchewan. But again, it's all just Canadian teams right now. Would love to see Mike. So here's how things look right now. Top of the board is Maddie Dunstone of Winnipeg, Brad Gushu of Newfoundland, 2-1 records, Brad Jacobs and Kevin Cooey. 1-2 is Epping and McEwen, and the Kleider rink and Jordan McDonald from Winnipeg right now still searching for their first wins. And as I said, we'll be all over this for the course of the week following our Manitoba teams trying to represent Canada at the Olympic Games. Let's get Remis back in here. Reem, how are things going on your end today?
Yeah, we're good. This show's been great. Taylor Allen, some great insight on Valor. Looking forward to seeing him at the curling in Halifax. And the Bombers, the CFL offseason it is, the season just ended last week, and the news is coming. And interesting that the Bombers given permission to interview Mike Miller, but a different. Yeah, I had to do a double take.
When I first saw it, I thought the Argos were interviewing our Mike Miller for a job with them. So it was hard to keep track of. But no, Mike Miller, special teams Mike Miller, I would imagine will be staying with Mike O'Shea. There might be an additional one. Now, the question that everyone is wondering, are you still the Phantom today, or has a camera arrived and is it operational? Are we doing is the ghost mic?
No, I'm good. I'll pop myself in 1 second. There's a lot going on here. It was scrambled to get it all set up, but no one cares.
No, you did a good job. We were dealing with power outages and all sorts of things today, but we did get the show. There's Remis for all of you that were missing here today. He's back, been dealing with a number of things behind the scenes, but we've got it done. Never got your take on the end of the pro soccer team.
I agree with Taylor. They were never good. They never gave people a reason to watch. And I did agree with your take. When the Sea Bears came out, I think we were excited for basketball. I thought this soccer was going to work. I thought there were a lot of soccer fans here, soccer growing. They never put out a competitive team. Didn't give people a reason. And the Sea Bears had Chad Posthumous. When they started, I do think COVID certainly an impact as well. But they had Chad Posthumous as the face of the franchise, as the Winnipeg guy. And they had that great first season. Now, the Sea Bears the last 2 years did not go according to plan. We'll see how they are in, year 4 this upcoming year. But I think it's disappointing. I was very excited when they announced CPL. I remember being at 1290 and enjoying it.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, the GFL's hot in the chat today.
Yes.
And you know what? Greg is one of those passionate Valor fans, of which there just simply weren't enough. But I'll give Gregory a lot of credit. I mean, he was a guy that was always mentioning, hey, the games, this is what's happening. And, unfortunately, people like Gregory didn't have enough company, and I don't think really had the support, and certainly the team didn't. And that's why we are where we are today.
Yeah, it's. I think it's unfortunate. You don't want to see a team full, but ultimately, they were here for a while and didn't have the support. So we'll see what happens with this league moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. There were some nice things. Greg's mad at Taylor, but a lot of other people.
Have you seen this chat? Gregory's demanding to come in on the show and give his take as one of the number one Valor supporter.
Hey, he was always out there in the trench. Every time I went to a game, the GFL was rocking it. And yes, I mean, listen, I love and appreciate G's passion for this, and as I say, it's really too bad, and I'm not sure that it was I think it certainly was avoidable to end in the fashion that it did. But man, there was a lot of things going against that team, and a lot of things that I think they were missing for it to be successful.
Yeah, and I'll say this with Taylor, we also never really talked about Valor at all the last 2 years, but there was never really a story to talk about. They lost every game. It was so I get. Should we take some of the blame? Huss?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I thought about that over the course of the weekend. And, certainly early on, we tried to have people on. I mean, much like what Taylor just mentioned, I mean, you can track everything. Like when he's putting out an article on Valor FC in the Winnipeg Free Press, people weren't reading it. And, when we would do things live on the show on Valor FC, we'd lose a lot of people. I mean, it certainly wasn't bringing anything out. And again, I don't have the answer for that. But at a certain point in our business, here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, well, why do we talk about the Jets so much? Well, that's what you want us to talk about. That is what is driving the numbers. That's the engine behind most of the sports conversations. And the Bombers are right there as well. And then all the other things that people are watching, the National Football League on the weekend, the Blue Jays and baseball, and I would love for it to have been different. But when people aren't responding to content on a particular thing, it's not really up to us to be the champions. And as I say, that gets back to the management from the get-go. And I thought Rob Gale was an amazing choice for the first head coach. And as I say, probably their best success, certainly in the stands, was when the team was new. They never really recovered coming out of that bubble. And unfortunately, we're having the conversations that we are today. All right. Taylor had that nice Coolbet hat on. Let's head over to Coolbet and check out what's going on for tonight. And then we'll finish off with a little bit of a weekend recap in the National Football League. We got the Niners and the Panthers tonight. Both of these teams have had some really ugly games so far this year. And the Niners in particular have been just absolutely decimated by injuries, playing most of their games without almost all of their receiving core. George Kittle missed a bunch of time. Brock Purdy missed a lot of time. Credit where credit is due. The fact that Kyle Shanahan has this team at 7-4 going into this game tonight as a 7-point favorite, I think is, he might be, if you're talking about coach of the year, I might put a vote for Shanahan right now. But the Panthers are shockingly above 500. Could they win this game tonight? Would actually take over first in the NFC South. The spread for the game is 7. Total for the game is 49.5. Have to admit, now that the Niners are getting healthier, I'm feeling San Francisco tonight. The fellas have a bunch of pretty cool exclusives up. Super boost tonight is McCaffrey to get a touchdown, Ovie to get a point, boosted to plus 155. The house callers tonight is Kittle, McCaffrey, and Rico Dowdle, just under 5-1 with the boost. And then here's a good one, the run CMC. McCaffrey get a touchdown, over 5.5 receptions. and over 17.5 rushing attempts. So a bunch of it. I think I'm going to play the Niners tonight. Let's look at the anytime touchdown market. I'm feeling George Kittle again. He always likes these primetime games. Kittle, first touchdown is 5-1. Anytime touchdown plus 124. So I think I'll go on that. And I guess from the Carolina side, 4th overall pick, rookie wide receiver Ted McMillan has had some big games, especially last game when, Bryce Young went for almost 450. He's a guy that I'll maybe be taking a look at. Let's see what his receiving prop for today is. Receiving yards, Ted McMillan.
It's like 68. Is that what it is at now?
It is 66 and a half. So they're going to need to score, and they'll be slinging it. We'll see if Bryce Young can come off the best performances of NFL career with another one. As far as the National Hockey League goes, not a super busy day today in the National Hockey League, but pretty busy for a Monday, actually, with 7 games. Detroit's in Jersey to take on the Devils. Devils minus 139. Blues in New York to take on the Rangers. Looks like JT Miller's probably not going to play tonight. Blues plus 120, Rangers minus 141. Phillies in Tampa to take on the Lightning. Lightning minus 175 favorites. The Capitals, who the Jets will play in D.C. on Wednesday, they're at home to the Blue Jackets. Washington minus 167 faves. Florida is in Nash Vegas to take on the Predators. Preds plus 118 home dogs. Panthers decimated lineup, still the favorites at minus 139. And the late game tonight, I think this is the prime game tonight, Reem. 8 o'clock start for us. A little earlier than most Kings games. But Ottawa at LA. Ottawa, the lone Canadian team in a playoff spot as we do this show. They're 5 games above 500. Ottawa plus 130, and the Kings at minus 154 over at Coolbet.
Yeah, interesting slate of games. Monday, pretty busy. Don't see that too often. So I'll be tuning into the football, hockey, a lot of games. It's the quarter mark of the season, and we're almost U.S. Thanksgiving. So, but a lot of teams have so jammed together. We've been talking about that for the last bit here. It'll be interesting how this all shakes out.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the Jets have been passed by a few teams, including the Wild, who came in and shut them out yesterday. Wild 8-1-1 in their last 10. I think 9-1-1 in their last 11. Amazing month of November so far for Minnesota. And, you have a bad week or a bad couple weeks, and all of a sudden that lofty spot that saw you at the top of the standings, and you're right there in the muck with a whole bunch of teams right in the middle of the pack looking to be on the other side of the playoff line. Don't forget, tomorrow, poker tourney, 8 p.m. We'll put out details on the social channels. If you played before, you know where we'll be. Tomorrow, 8 p.m., join us. $100 bounty on my head, Remis's head, and Jeff Hamilton, who has created his own little dynasty in these last 3 tournaments. So all systems go to try to take out the hammer tomorrow night. Join us on the show for more details, and keep your eyes on our social channels. Everyone is welcome. Click on Coolbet, click on Poker. The guys are just getting it set up, but you can head in there, and 8 p.m. tomorrow, join us for what should be another really fun tourney. Remo, before we go, the only thing that salvaged my weekend after the 2 tough losses for the Jets was the Chiefs saving their season in the second half yesterday against the Indianapolis Colts. Chiefs defense stepping up in a big way after Danny Dimes was brilliant. It was sort of Indiana Jones for the first half, and then it was more Danny Dimes from the Giants for the second half. But huge part of it was what Kansas City did on defense. So the Chiefs got a big win. How about the Dallas Cowboys coming back from 21-0 down to beat the Philadelphia Eagles? The Eagles have just seemed off all year despite their lofty record. This one is going to sting a little bit. A divisional game. Dallas now right in the thick of things when it comes to the playoffs at 5-1. But that was certainly one of the more stunning results we've seen in a while in the NFL.
Yeah, we haven't seen so many upsets. Carolina's had a couple, and I'm in a survivor pool, and I can't remember the last time I lasted this long. So you haven't?
Are you still in?
I am still. Well, it was double knockout actually.
Oh, okay.
So I've been knocked out once. I took Carolina against the Saints. So
that's what ended my season.
But there's one guy who actually still has both of his lives left, and me and a couple others. So, but I think last year was like week 4. I had used both of my knockouts in the survivor pool. So I think you haven't seen too many upsets. And for the Eagles, their offense just hasn't been humming along the way that it has in the past, and they got off to this great start against the Dallas defense that gives up a ton of points, and then in the second half they just couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get it going. I don't know if it's injury to Lane Johnson. AJ Brown hasn't been that productive for them. So we'll see. They did win the Super Bowl last year, so we should be able to figure this out. But
they can't run anymore. Like they ran. Saquon Barkley had like a historic season last year, and now they just cannot run the ball consistently. It is very, very strange.
He was so good last year after they acquired him. You're like, oh, this guy's unbelievable. How could the Giants ever let him go? And this year, has he had any explosive run plays? Have you ever heard about him? I'm not really sure what to make of that. But yeah, they have. When you don't have a run game, it certainly makes everything else a bit more difficult.
Now, just in case you're wondering, coming out of the Sunday, the favorite at Coolbet to win the Super Bowl, the Los Angeles Rams, at plus 475.
Wow.
The Eagles are second at plus 600, 6-1. The Chiefs are next, the third team, the top team in the AFC by the odds, certainly not by the standings. Kansas City 10-1, Indy 11-1, Ravens 12-1, Bills 12-1, Seahawks and Lions both 12-1, Denver at 14 and Green Bay at 15. It is a wild odds board right now, and unless you're liking the Rams or the Eagles to win this whole thing, there's a Super Bowl winner out there at more than 10-1 waiting for you. Matt Stafford, no surprise, the favorite for the regular season MVP, minus 225 now for Stafford. Drake May plus 225, and then Allen, Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor 20-1. Patriots, Broncos, Chiefs, and Colts, all 5-1 to win the AFC. One of the wildest setups we've seen in a long time right now. And the Broncos minus 294 to win the AFC West. Chiefs 5-1, Chargers 6-1, and the Raiders 250-1. Couple other games that we should mention. The Bears somehow keep getting it done. Like, I'll say this right now. I will be running to the window to bet against them in the playoffs if they somehow manage to win this division. But 8-3 is 8-3. They're on top of that division. The Lions avoided disaster yesterday, Remo, with that comeback win in overtime over the Giants. Jahmyr Gibbs, if you're in a PPR league, he had over 60 fantasy points yesterday. But for me, even in a losing cause, the story of this game was Jameis Winston, who threw for 2 touchdowns and caught his first touchdown ever and went in from 20 yards out. The NFL is always a lot more fun when Jameis Winston is starting for any team in the league.
I love Jameis Winston. He's great for fantasy. You saw him elevating Wan'Dale Robinson and even catching his own touchdown. He had 30 more yards in an overtime game than Jameson Williams, who gave everyone a big fat 0. So I don't know what was going on there with the Lions, but they eventually figured it out and were able to win that game in overtime. And I don't really spend time looking at the standings. You said the Bears are 8-3.
Yeah,
is that real?
Yeah, that's real. They win every game by between 1 and 3 points, and I don't know. They keep getting it done, and obviously they've got a last place schedule as well, which is sort of a common theme. The schedule of some of these teams that are leading divisions right now. New England, Indianapolis, Denver are all there, and we should mention Tampa. So Tampa got smoked last night by the Rams, who are looking all of the Super Bowl favorites right now. But Baker Mayfield basically threw a ball so hard, I think he separated his shoulder or something like that. He left the game, was in a sling afterwards. Teddy Bridgewater there. If Teddy Bridgewater's the starter for the rest of the season for the Bucs, all of a sudden Atlanta might actually be back in after losing 4 in a row. And we really don't know what to make of this Carolina team. So that division in particular, really interesting. Tampa's had a murderous schedule. And right when they kind of get to some of the easier games, they lose their quarterback. So that'll be a big story that we'll be following as we get closer to, of course, Thursday, U.S. Thanksgiving Day. May have to cook up the lock shop and our WST winners a little early for this week because, and 3 great Thanksgiving Day games, Remis. Noon, Packers-Lions. 3:30, Chiefs-Cowboys, both with massive wins on the weekend. And the Bengals and the Ravens, 2 teams that absolutely hate each other. I don't think we'll be seeing Joe Burrow back anytime soon, even though he's practicing with the ones. Bit of a lost season, but great day full of football coming up on Thursday.
Joe Burrow's going to play Thursday.
They've said that he's going to?
The coach expects him to play Thursday. That's what they said this morning. Yeah. Anticipates that he's going to play.
Interesting, because he practiced all last week, and then they didn't play him last week, and now they're 3-8. You kind of wonder, well, what the heck are they going to do? But tell you what, the Bengals are live, and listen, I'm here for that, especially when we think about the Baltimore situation. Bengals 7-point underdogs in that game. Ravens didn't look very good yesterday against the Jets. Maybe jumping on that +7 for Cincy. Just back to Coolbet for a minute. Lions 2.5-point favorites over the Packers. Chiefs 3-point favorites over the Cowboys. And 7 for the Ravens. But tonight's game is also a -7 for the San Francisco 49ers against the Carolina Panthers. Fun show today. Again, sorry about the late start, but it's the beauty of the podcast and YouTube. You can check it out as well, at your convenience. We'll be back tomorrow, the latest from Jet practice before the team hits the road. Hopefully an update on Neil Pionk, maybe some clarity as to how the goaltending is going to work for this up, and we'll see how the clean line lines have been shaken up or changed, or whether they're status quo after Arnie got the blender out on the weekend. Thanks to everyone that joined us today. Great conversations in and around the Jets and much more. Thanks to Taylor Allen, John Matisz, and of course Ken Wiebe. Remo for doing some yeoman's work to make it all happen today as they dealt with the power outage. And enjoy the Monday Nighter tonight. We'll be back at 1 p.m. tomorrow with the latest on the Jets as they hit the road to Washington for their next game on Wednesday night. Thanks again to all the WST sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. All of you for checking it out. We will see you tomorrow right here, 1 p.m. on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.